So we are live now. Hello, everybody. My name is Aamir Abbas, and I welcome all of you to my YouTube channel. And today we are going to talk about. Uh, I think I'm getting an echo of my sound, so let me adjust the sound before we proceed with it. Yeah, okay. So my name is Dr. Aamir Abbas, and I'm today here in front of you people on my YouTube channel, and I want to talk about. We, as a panel, want to talk about a Fulbright scholarship. We have a comprehensive panel with us, and without any further delay, because we have four panelists with us today, I want to talk about what we are going to. What we'll be discussing about. And before going to do that, I'm going to give an introduction of my panelists. I have Muhammad Adil Salim with me, who is currently a Fulbright scholar at the University of California, Davis, pursuing a PhD in microbiology. I have Izzah with me, who is currently a Fulbright scholar studying public policy and management and data analytics at Carnegie Mellon University. I have Rabia with me, who is a Fulbright scholar and doing PhD in environmental resource engineering. Her specialization is in geospatial information science and engineering. And I have Zain, who is currently a Fulbright scholar and who is doing master in cybersecurity from Carnegie Mellon University. So this is the brief introduction of our panelists for this session. I will request you people that if you have any questions during the discussion, you can put them in the comments. We'll take all the questions, depending on the time, how much time we have in the comments. We will take them in the end. The format of this session will be that each panelist will talk about a particular aspect of the Fulbright scholarship, because Fulbright scholarship is a very comprehensive application process, and the whole of the process is a very comprehensive exercise. So each panelist will talk about a specific aspect of the Fulbright scholarship, and that's all. So first of all, I will invite Rabia. Will give you a general overview of the whole of the process. So Rabia, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so over to you, Rabia.
Thank you, Dr. Aamir, first of all, for inviting us and also for taking this initiative, because definitely all of us want more students from Pakistan to achieve scholarships and come to US and also other countries, not particularly US. But this session is focusing on Fulbright Scholarship, which is particularly for US. It's a cultural exchange program. So if you're planning to get settled in US, I would highly recommend don't go for it. There are so many other ways in terms of direct admissions that you can take and settle yourself in US. This is for the students who want to gain experience and come back and implement it back in Pakistan. Like give back to your country. If you have that passion, then this is the best option for you. As Dr. Aamir said, there are a lot of aspects of the scholarship, and it covers a huge timeline in terms of like from the application starting date till when you land in US. That's a 1.5 year long process. So please bear with me. I'll try to summarize that year and a half in like 10 minutes. So I'm not talking about the COVID related details because of COVID, the deadlines are changed. So I'm talking about the general deadlines and general format. So generally, the applications open in middle of February every year, and the deadline for application form is almost like May 15, depending on when the week ends. So you have like ample time to prepare for scholarship, even if you don't know about it beforehand. So from the when the applications are open, there is ample time for you to prepare for it because there are a lot of components to it. So please don't leave it till last minute. You cannot submit it at 11th hour. It will take time to properly prepare this for the scholarship. So let's talk a little about eligibility requirements. If you're a citizen of Pakistan, you're eligible. But if you're have nationality of US or like a dual citizenship, or if your family like siblings or husband or parents have US nationality, then you are not eligible for the scholarship. Otherwise, you are eligible. And there are some specific fields related to practicing medicine in which you cannot apply, but there are also other sides of medicine that you can apply for the scholarship. So it basically covers pretty much all of the fields. So I talked about the general timeline of application open and application deadline, and there are a lot of components to this application. The details of which the other panelists are going to discuss in detail, but I'm going to tell you like the general overview. First of all, you need to have your degree completed by December of the year in which you're applying. Like for this year, by December 2021, you need to have your degree attested by HEC to submit to the Fulbright office. Okay. And definitely the general requirement is like GPA above 3, but I would highly recommend that if you have GPA above 3.5, then you have better chances, but that's not a hard rule. It depends upon your overall profile. And I cannot emphasize that enough, that it depends upon your overall profile, and each and every element of the application is equally important. And there is no hard and fast rule of if statement, like if your GRE score is greater than this, then you'll get the scholarship, or if your GPA is greater than this value, you'll get the scholarship. No, it depends upon your overall personality, your overall profile, your overall application, and each and every component of the application. So it includes definitely your GPA, your achievements throughout your academia, your publications, your conferences, your voluntary participation. This is a very important point because I know many students in Pakistan, especially from like government universities, don't have enough options to put these type of badges on their CV, like volunteer work or part of a society or community work. But I want to emphasize this, that whatever opportunity you get, like volunteering for a conference management, volunteering for a community service, volunteering for a society, anything you can get your hands on, do it, because this is also very important. In addition to your GPA and publications, this aspect is also very important, the volunteer work. And then, as everyone say, the most important part is there are 2 essays of 750 words in case of Pakistan. Internationally, the board limit and the requirements change a little bit, but we'll be focusing more on Pakistan, but generally the requirements are pretty much the same. So there are 2 essays, which the other panelists will talk about in detail, but generally I can tell you that one is personal statement, the other is study objective. And I know students face a lot of confusion when writing these essays. So in summary, personal statement is about your personality, your life, your personal and professional growth. Study objective is about what you want to study, like sort of a, not exactly research proposal, but sort of what you want to do and how that will help your country. And definitely in both essays, you have to write what are your goals and how Fulbright will help you in achieving the goal. This is very important point. Do not emphasize on just getting the scholarship. Make sure you convey your point that scholarship is just a mean to get to your destination. Scholarship, getting Fulbright is not your goal. Fulbright will help you achieve your goal. So please take some time, ask yourself what you want to do, make sure your life objectives and goals are very clear, because as much as you are clear within yourself, it will help you to convey the same to the Fulbright panel through your application and through your interview. And then you need minimum of three recommendation letter. Three are generally preferred, like we say not go more than that. Like if three are good enough, just go for three best recommendation letter. And generally it is recommended that one should be from academia and one should be like from work experience. If you did any internship or any other job or like any other professional experience, that would be good. But if you're like a bachelor student and you're applying for a master's and you did not get any chance for internship, then that's okay. You can get three from academia as well. There is also another important part of the Fulbright application, which most of the students leave it as optional. I did the same, but I got lucky that I still got placed at a very good university, but not everyone get that chance. So you have an option for university selection, and I would highly recommend that what I did, you should not do that. Spend enough time on the university selection based on what you want to do. And especially if you are going for PhD, then do look for the advisors, because in case of PhD, your advisor matter more than the university. And look beyond the Ivy League, because I know most of the students in Pakistan, they just aim for the top universities, but trust me, the other tier is also very good, because some schools may not be good in all of their departments. So don't go for overall ranking. Just see that in your particular subject, in your particular area, which university is good, which lab is good. I will not say university, just go for that particular lab, go for that particular advisors. Do your search, like search your field related papers on Google Scholar, search for professors, see their affiliation, go check out their labs. This is how you can shortlist the university. And that is very important part of your application. So again, all in all, like, you should define your goals clearly. Again, I cannot emphasize enough on that. In my case, my emphasis was that I wanted to bridge the gap between industry and academia. Because in Pakistan, I've seen that after getting a degree, when you go into practical experience, that is totally different. Like what you do practically is not related to what you are taught. And that's a huge gap. So my objective in overall like Fulbright application was that I want to go to US, because I have seen in US every year, like bachelor students are given so many internship opportunities. Like by the time they get the degree, they have so much experience on their hands of practical knowledge. Like they know how the work is done actually, and not just read it in the books and theory. So I wanted to implement that experience back to when I will be engaged in academia. So like I had a clear goal and I had a clear objective of what I want to learn from US and how Fulbright will help me achieve my goals. So I'm again emphasizing enough, like if you want to settle in US, go for direct admissions. Do not go into the Fulbright process, because there are a lot of commitments and bonds and like papers that you will sign before you leave 2 years on Fulbright. So Fulbright is not the only way into US, but trust me, Fulbright has its privileges. You will get to know, like, it's not just a scholarship. It's about being part of a family, and the family that you will cherish forever. The connections that you will make are lifelong. In my cohort, I have made so many amazing connections, and I know that they will go along. And it's sort of like credibility. When you see someone and they say like, oh, I'm a Fulbrighter, you instantly connect with them. So it's like, it's a credibility also on your part. And like, it's a family, and it's not just limited to Pakistan. When you will come to US, you will see that there's a whole international community of Fulbrighters, and you will you'll get amazing connections, trust me. So it's not just scholarship, but again, it's what you want. You want to come back and serve your country, or you want to get settled in US. So it's like pros and cons on both sides. So just like be clear in yourself what you want, and then you can go ahead with that. So after the applications like close in May, usually the interview starts around first week of August, and they continue for like 4 to 6 weeks. And then by October, you are communicated that if you are selected or not. And if selected, there are two options: principal candidate and alternate candidate. Alternate candidate means that if there are positions left, then you will be converted to the principal candidate. But mostly I've seen, like in my case, all the alternate candidates were converted to principal candidates. And then there's a whole there is a lot of procedures, but the good thing is that you will have to do one step at a time. So it's not like you're not overburdened. It's very slow process. So yeah, you have to be patient and trust them that they will place you in, like, you will go to US. Just have faith in it and just do what they ask for. First they will ask for HUC documentation, then they will convey to you your university plan. If you don't agree with it, just tell them that, okay, I do not want this university, change it. Just communicate as soon as possible. Do not wait. Like, as soon as you get the email, if you think something's wrong, just get back to them. And then there's a whole process of medical form and all that, but I don't think so that's important to discuss at this point, because at this point we're encouraging more people to apply. Hopefully, Dr. Aamir, we can arrange another session like in October or in that era to cover the other part, like the procedures from once you are selected till you land in the US. So I guess that's it from my side. Back to you, Dr. Aamir.
Okay, Rabia, thanks a lot for a very comprehensive overview. Any of the other panelists, if you want to add anything which you think is important from the context of the overall overview of the process? Anybody?
I think the early you plan about the scholarship, that's better. Sometimes people there is a lot of mentors out there who can review your essays and all those things, who can help you out, but not exactly with, like, if there is a deadline in a couple of weeks or in a week. So everything you do, just plan in advance. So that's a small thing that I want to add.
Okay, yeah, plan in advance. So with that, I'm going to move to our second panelist, who is Izzah, and she will be talking as I think Rabia talked about, that you have to take a GRE exam, and you're going to take GRE exam, you're going to take the TOEFL exam. GRE exam is an eligibility criteria for completing your application. I think the rules were different in the COVID era, but we are going to talk generically about it. If things are different because of COVID, you have to ask the US Education Foundation Pakistan's office, which is the agency responsible for managing the Fulbright Scholarship in Pakistan. But Izzah is going to talk generally about the details of GRE and then TOEFL preparation. So Izzah, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Aamir, and thank you for arranging this platform. Also, thank you, Rabia, for sharing your insights. I'll be talking about what is GRE and why is it important, and then I'll talk about when should you take it. After that, we'll discuss a little bit on what the exam is like, how to prepare for it, what resources are there, and then a very major pain point that a question that everyone has: what is a good score for GRE? So starting off with what is GRE, it's basically an exam which is mostly MCQs or short answer based exams, and where which has two essays as well. So that doesn't qualify for the MCQ part. But why is it important? Because for admission in a US university, you need to submit a GRE score. Sometimes, because GRE is also it's an online exam, so The offices are in Islamabad and in Karachi, I believe, as well. And I'm not sure about Lahore. So there we have a panelist from Lahore, so maybe he can talk about it. You register for it in advance on the ETS website, and the fee is around $205, which is 33,000 PKR. So I know that sounds like a huge amount to pay upfront for something that the return on investment is not as clear. But because it's a prerequisite for any university in the US, you need to take it. So please don't get intimidated by the fee, because eventually if you get the Fulbright and you get to go to US, or even through direct admissions, it is definitely worth it. It's an investment in yourself. Think of it like that. So even if you have to save for it or something, please, I would strongly recommend doing it, because if you don't do it, then there is actually very little chance of going to US at all. Then moving on to when to take it. Like Adil also mentioned earlier, the earlier the better. I say this because if you're targeting a certain score, you may not always get it in the first try. And additionally, it's valid for 5 years. So even if you don't plan to apply to US immediately, but you have like a couple of months off from work, or maybe you're taking a break after university, take the GRE. It will be valid for 5 years. So even if you're not planning on applying immediately, your plans might change in the future. So consider taking it as early as possible. With Fulbright, you need to submit it with the application. So with application deadline, you will need to submit your GRE score. I understand they made some exceptions during COVID, but generally they require you to upload it. Um, uh, Again, the earlier the better. You would want, if you're aiming for a certain score, you would want to give yourself time to be able to reach that score. If not in the first attempt, give yourself room that you can make another attempt. Moving on to what the exam is like. So the exam has 3 portions. The first one is an essay part, where you have 2 prompts on which you need to write an essay. That is, I'm sure it's important for some programs, but if you're applying for engineering, it's not as important. There are other 2 sections as well. There's verbal and quantitative. For engineering or STEM programs, generally the quantitative section is very important, because a lot of weightage is placed on that. And then there's a verbal section, which is mostly based on English language, and the questions test your critical thinking as well, but mostly around English language. Next, another important aspect of the exam is that after you're done with the exam, immediately you will be asked to enter 4 university names. So that is something, when you're preparing, a lot of times when people are preparing for GRE, they are preparing for all the questions and everything, but they don't take into account the universities that they want to send their results to. And that is actually a huge lost opportunity if you don't do it, or if you don't plan for it, because when you have to additionally send to another university, you'll need to pay an additional $20 or $25. So it's a good idea, if you have universities shortlisted in your mind, or if you, even if you don't have exact universities, some programs that you might apply to, take them. They'll have, each university or program would have its code that you can take with yourself to the exam center, and then after the exam you'll be required to immediately enter those codes. For Fulbright, so Fulbright happens to, for Fulbright you will need to actually send those codes to Fulbright. EFP has its codes. If you send it on that day, that will be good. If not, you'll be asked to send it afterwards, which will cost you some additional money. Next, coming to how to prepare for it. So because GRE is widely taken all over the world, a lot of permutations exist. Everyone follows whatever suits them, and a lot of people end up getting good scores through different pathways. So there's no one size fits all approach. I'll talk about the strategy I used. I got this book from Princeton Review. If you get their original book, there are copies available as well, but if you get their original book, you also get 6 mock exams with it on their website. So that gives you some room to practice. So that really appealed to me, and I took that. And then it's a comprehensive book which takes you from start. It talks about all the sections, and talks about a lot of strategies that you can use for each section. um, One other thing that I would recommend doing for preparing, start with a mock test. And I think it talks about that in the book as well. Why do you want to do that? Because you need to see where you stand at the beginning, and what your target score is, what is the gap between that, and how much effort or time will be required to um, reach that target score. So don't worry if if you get a low score in the beginning. It also, I think it also helps uh, uh, like helps with the fear or of unknown, or when you don't know what the GRE is. When you take a mock test, go through it, it's done, and then you know what it's like. So then you can just start preparing for it, start analyzing your weak areas, the areas you need improvement on. um, uh, and after the mock test, you can see, you can analyze what areas you need improvement for. And I think I missed one point in the previous section, that what the exam is like. It's not difficult. Like, some sections might appear, depending on what your prior expertise or knowledge areas are. If you're from an engineering background, I say that because I am from an engineering background and I can speak for that. The math is not difficult. It's actually very basic. It's high school or high school level math, but it's tricky. So what it requires is practice. The more you practice, the more you understand the tricks or the format. uh, so uh, so that's what I'll say. Don't be scared, don't be intimidated by it. It's actually pretty simple. It just needs some practice to get a hang of the format of the quantitative section. Next, there are also, for the mock test, there two mock tests are available on ETS website that you can take for free. So even if you don't want to buy an original book or some mock tests, you can actually get the two ETS tests from their website. um, uh, and that's pretty much it. There are other sources as well. Another very helpful source that I used was the Magoosh vocabulary app. It's free, and what you can do, it has flashcards in it. So you need to prepare a lot of words for GRE, like a minimum of 600 words. Some of them you would not have heard in your life before, and you would not hear them again as well. But you need to prepare them for this very exam. So in that case, that app, I found it helpful because it's handy. You're traveling, you're commuting, you can just keep looking at it, practicing the words again and again. And it's free of cost. Magoosh also provides a very personalized assessment and preparation uh, pathway, which one of my friends took. And I think they promise that if you don't get an improvement of some score, we'll refund your money. So that it's costly, but they do refund if you don't have a certain improvement. So if you want to invest, that's a good resource that my friend recommended. And other than that, I can also talk about the resources that are there that you can use. There are Facebook groups. Some of them, there's one group that I found helpful. It was called Fulbright. It was called Scholars Den GRE Preparation, where everyone is preparing for GRE. So if you have a question, if you're confused about something, post there. Chances are someone would have already posted, or in their initial pinned post, they would have written a very detailed description of what resources are there, how can you go about it. So do join those groups to have so if even if you're preparing alone, you don't feel like you're preparing alone. There are people around and you can ask for help. At the end, I'll come to this question that we all have. And I think I still have this question actually, that what is a good score for GRE? Now that depends. I think it's a subjective question. That depends on what you're aiming for. One way to look about it would be the programs that you're applying for. Look at the profiles of their students, of their alumni, and see what was their average GRE score, or what range were they in, to give you a rough idea of what this university accepts. I'll give an example. MIT, for example, there was a program I was applying for, and it said you need to be in the top, I think, 10th percentile for each in each category, for the essays, for verbal and quantitative as well. So that's kind of like a, and it's MIT, so you can understand that their requirements are different. But for another university, it may not be as the requirements may not be as high. And you can generally find it in one on their website. Some universities do explicitly mention, and or you can find them in their alumni profiles. Now, other than that, for Fulbright, what is a good score for Fulbright, right? Again, for Fulbright, I wouldn't say there's a good score, because Fulbright actually looks at your application very holistically. So, given that, generally, I would say 300 plus anything should be sufficient to at least get you considered. But doesn't mean if you don't get a 300 plus, you're out of the race. That's not the case. If you have, for example, if you have a score lower than that, but you have very strong recommendation letters, you have a very good personal statement. Fulbright pays a lot of emphasis on personal statement. So if you have a good personal statement, good recommendations, everything else looks good. So I think a lower GRE score should be okay as well. So don't be demotivated if you don't end up scoring the best GRE score in the world. It's okay, not the end of the world. Focus on other areas. Try giving another shot if you can, and focus on other that's the good thing about Fulbright. They really, really look at your profile holistically. So that's pretty much it from my side. About TOEFL, I would say I wouldn't worry too much about TOEFL while applying for Fulbright, because it doesn't kick in until you get an interview call. So when you get an interview call, that's when you need to show them that you're registered for TOEFL, and then you need to give it within 2 weeks. Generally, TOEFL isn't as difficult. A lot of people I know, it took them 3-4 days to prepare for TOEFL. That's not the case for GRE. GRE actually requires like months of preparation. So and then TOEFL may not be a deal breaker as well. If you get a low score in TOEFL, they will ask you to take another attempt. So I wouldn't worry too much about TOEFL while applying for Fulbright. I'll worry more about GRE, because GRE will be a major not major, but like a big deciding factor to get you that interview call. That's pretty much it from my side. I will hand it back to Dr. Aamir.
Thank you very much, Izzah, for a very comprehensive overview of this important aspect, which for many of the applicants is a limiting factor to apply for Fulbright scholarship. Before moving forward, I will want my panelists if they want to comment on any aspect of this particular topic. Anybody?
To add to what Izzah said, I think there is an option for people who are applying from public universities to have a voucher for the GRE test, but they're very limited and they're like first come, first served basis. So you could also, avail those if you cannot afford to pay for the GRE, or you think it's a very risky investment.
Yeah, I can add to that, because in IST, Institute of Space Technology, we had an option for mock GRE, and they did like top 3 students who scored top score in the mock. They like refunded for the actual test. So I got that. So that's a good option, like in some universities. So if you have that, yeah, just avail that. That's a good option.
One final quick comment. As Izzah said, like, it's not the only factor. GRE is not the only factor. There was a reviewer, like the person who reviewed the whole applications, and it was his comment, and he said, just take the GRE. And then there is another important one. If you don't, like, I have seen people with 290 scores selecting for the Fulbright. And why is it not the very important thing? Because when you are selected for the Fulbright, they will ask you to reappear for the GRE to improve your scores. So don't worry about it, and they will pay for it. So don't worry about that too. So if your score is less, don't worry about it. Just apply, so you can make it like afterward.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And add on to that, before we move forward to our next panelist, is that first, Izzah talked about the Magoosh app and online subscription. I used that and I found it extremely helpful. And I think I attribute my goods, or a reasonable score of GRE to that app, that subscription. So because that streamlines your preparation and many other aspects of it. So if you can afford it, it's not very expensive. It's approximately $149. And a disclaimer: we are not getting paid for promoting there. It's just like on the basis of our experience that you have used it and it was very useful. So those of you who can afford it, definitely use that platform. And with that,
yeah, one quick thing, like $149 in Pakistan, it's a lot of money. So students don't pay for it. And I think you and people, when they appear for the test, then they sell their subscriptions. So they sell their subscription for like 3,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees. It's like that. So in all these scholarship groups that Izzah mentioned, and so they advertise for it. Say, hey, I'm selling this. Are anybody interested? So instead of paying $149, you only get it for like 3,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees.
That's a very good point, because I actually ended up selling my subscription to somebody. So that's something which I've also experienced. So with that, I'm going to hand over the session to our next panelist, which is Adil. He'll be talking about, because as part of the GRE applications, you have to go through making 2 essays, and they are a very, very important part of your application. I'd say they are kind of heart of your application. So over to Adil to talk about the essays.
Okay, thank you, Aamir, and thank you for doing this. It's very important, and it's also very important to have like a panel who can share their experiences as well, because everybody is taking different approaches. For example, like for the GRE, Izzah mentioned that she has used Princeton. I used like the Manhattan. And it's not one size fit all strategy. So also for the statement of purpose and research statements, if the approaches are different, for example, if statement of purpose is about your personality and your background and all those things, so you cannot just give somebody, okay, this is the criteria you need to follow, and you will get a very good personal statement. No, it's not like that. Everybody has a different personality. Everybody has a different background, different challenges. So today I'm talking about like the bare minimum criteria that you need to follow. Like, okay, how to begin with. And I would love to to hear from the other panelists in the end about their inputs and how they compile their whole essays. So. One of the things is very important that you need to think about from the reviewer perspective. If you are a reviewer, how would you review all these things? So the Fulbright Scholarship, they get like more than 4,000 or 5,000 scholarships, and when you have that big stack of scholarships, how much time every application got? Not more than 5 minutes, So if you break it down to the essays, how much time does your essay will take for the reviewers to review it? So I'm not talking about the Fulbright, but there is the original statistic from another of my friend who applied for another scholarship, and he was sharing that you only get like 1 minute to review an essay. So in 1 minute, you are deciding whether it's a good essay or it's a bad essay, whether you want to select on the basis of this or not. So you have to be like very creative. Your start should be interesting. It should not be very boring. And so that it could make some impact. It should make the reviewer like that. It should grab his attention. So So this is very important. Now, what is not a statement of purpose? Some people just, like, these are the common mistakes people make. They put everything from their CV. Okay, I did the BS, then I did the master's, then I did the projects, then I did internships, and this is where I am from, and I want to apply for this and all those things. Come on, that's not, like, I'm not interested. Like, if I'm a reviewer, I have already your CV, and you have mentioned everything there. I know your grades, I know what degree you're studying, I know all the internships you have done. So there is no point. This is a descriptive way that you can talk about your personality. Why, like, what are the experiences that you had, and the challenges, the sufferings, all those things. I'll talk about those in details, but the point here is it's not the list of your CV, right? That's important thing. Another thing is that be yourself, and if you could make a good story, that would be very, very good, because stories can stick into someone's mind, and it could be inspiring. And it's your opportunity to convince the reviewers. Okay, maybe you don't have like a lot of things in your CV, but you can talk about something that it's not on the CV. For example, if you have made some sacrifices in your life which has shaped your personality in a big way, so you can write about that, like your motivations and all those things. For example, if you got some opportunities and you said no to them, you can mention that, okay, these are the opportunities that I got. I said no to it because I wanted to get a Fulbright, or I want to get the foreign exposure. So you can write all those things that you cannot write in your CV, right? So yeah, it is a good opportunity to convince the reviewer that you are a good candidate. So moving forward, there are two very important points that I want to make before I want to go into like how to write it. One of the misconceptions that people have that there's only those people who have a strong English background can write a good statement of purpose, and it's not. And why? I mean, it is important, but it's not that important. And how? You can write a good your statement of purpose. It will have some mistakes. Definitely, you're not Shakespeare or someone. So you can give it to your friend. They can review it for you. And after a couple of edits and revision, you'll have an essay with a good structure, with no grammatical mistakes. But now that part is over. Like your friends can help with that. Your English teachers or anyone. But if the content is not convincing, you cannot earn a spot in the interview. So it is very important to work on the content. And Izzah said that, and also Rabia said that too, that the profile is very important. From your profile, the whole content is coming. You will talk about your volunteer experiences, your internships, your projects, and what you have learned from them. Now, the question is, if there is a deadline in like 2 months, can you build your profile in that? Of course not. Once you graduate, can you build your profile? I mean, you can join an organization, you can get some work experience, you can polish some of your skills, but that won't be enough. So the point I'm making here is that people, the students need to realize that they have to prepare in advance, to plan for their goals like way in advance, so they can engage themselves in kind of activities in their undergraduate. When you have opportunities, when you have resources in your university time, you can engage in those. You can get the skills, you can polish your skills, you can polish your personality, and then you will be able to write those things in your CV or your person statement. So the 4 years, it's very important, and you have to be in you have to engage yourself in all those activities which you can write in your CV or in your statement of purpose. So those are very important things. So now another point is, if it's not about English, so what's it about? So I think it's the two very important questions. It's about you, and two very important questions. It's about who you are, and the second one is, what do you want? And people might think, oh, it's a very easy question, but it's not like that. You have a lot of introspection of who you are. So you need to start from there. Like, okay, it's my personal statement. I'll talk about my personality, right? What inspires you? What motivates you, right? So you can talk about all those things. You can talk about your background and all those things, the challenges that you faced, the way you suffered, because those challenges shaped your personality. And then you can say, okay, these things made me resilient. These experiences made me a great leader. These experiences made me a team player. And with these experiences, my communication skills improved. So all these things, Now, another important thing that there might be an event or an accident or an incident or a calamity or anything that shaped your personality, that inspires you in some way. So you could mention that, and there might be some events like that, like which shaped your choices of your study, of your career. So you can mention that, okay, this I was watching a lot of movies, sci-fi movies, and that's why I got a motivation from it. I wanted to go into the science, something like that. Or maybe some events like, okay, maybe the COVID happened, pandemic happened, and I want to prepare. Okay, I saw a lot of mismanagement. I want to go in this field in the future. You can link all those things. So the first thing is that when you're done with the personality, then you can write about your motivation for the study. Why did you select your current field of study? That's the why is very important. Why have you selected your current field of study? Your initial motivation. So write about that. It could be anything. It could be like a movie, a book, an event, whatever, or a teacher. So all these things. Then when you're done with that, then you can talk about, okay, this was my initial motivation, and then I went into this field, and then you can talk about all what you have learned in your 4-year experiences, all the internship, the volunteer experiences, the events that you have attended, the projects that you've been involved in, and all those things. And the most important thing is that you have to have some leadership qualities. Mention that. If you have some achievements, mention those achievements. And participation and initiation is two different things. If you participated in a conference, it doesn't weigh much. If you have initiated some organization or society or something, that shows you are a leader. And Fulbright needs leaders. They need a spark in so that's very important. So mention those things. I know you have done a lot of things in the 4 years, but you need to prioritize and what you want to present here to convince the reviewers. So here you will write all those things. Now you move on to the second questions. What do you want? And that's where your vision of your life comes. Okay, this is what I want in my life for the next 20, 30 years. Okay, I'm very clear. These are my goals, for the 20 years, 30 years down the line. Now, when you explain that, now you come to very short-term goals. Okay, for my PhD program, this is what I want to work on. So this is my short-term goal. So when you have okay, what do you want to achieve? When you have your goals, your milestones in a very clear way, short-term, long-term, now another question comes okay, how do you want to achieve it? So in the how part, there comes the Fulbright. And there's a very important question that you need to answer in this statement of purpose. And you need to convince them that, okay, how can Fulbright help you out with these goals? So this is where you need to mention, okay, how can Fulbright help you out? How can the opportunities in the US help you out in achieving your goals? And move on from that point, then you can go to the one of the very important questions that how would you be able to contribute back to Pakistan when you get trained? Yeah. So, and you need to understand that Fulbright is not for you to like the main objective of Fulbright is not to train you to serve the US. They want to train you to serve back to Pakistan. So if you skip this, you are gonna skip some very important marks. So always mention that, okay, this is what I will get from the Fulbright program, and this is how I will implement back in Pakistan to contribute in that specific area and to contribute to my society. There was a brief one from the statement of purpose perspective. I can give you some examples if the time allows, but I'll have to move on to the second research objective. So the statement of purpose essay is about the personality. Research objective is about the research and your career and your current field of study. I know I mentioned that you have to discuss what your main goals or your short-term goals for your career in the statement of purpose, but that should be very brief. It should not be very detailed. You can mention it. There will be an overlap between the two of the essays, but over there, you talk about more about your life, your story, your personality, your goals in short. Here you can expand. You can begin with, okay, this is the field, this is the scope of my field. We can give some statistics. You can say, okay, the climate change is happening, and we'll have microbes out of the glaciers. They're melting. So, and you can give some statistics. Okay, so we'll have these. We are at the risk of this much diseases and stuff. So, yeah. So you make a scope of your field. Then you will talk about what was your motivation or something, or you can go in detail that what are the skills that you have. Can you pursue in that specific field? Do you have all those skills? So you mentioned that, okay, this is the things I have learned in my BS. Now, based on these skills, I can go into the PhD in any graduate program to pursue these specific goals that I set for my career. And of course, you can link that in the end with what you can contribute with this back to the Pakistan and what are the big questions that you can answer. And yes, I would mention that some people might think that the research publications are very, very important. I would say it's important, but it's not that much important. If you don't have a research articles to your name, that's fine. If you have done some project, that's enough. So with that, if you have any questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, Adil, for a very comprehensive overview on a very difficult aspect of the application process. And I will invite my panelists to comment if they have any on this aspect of the process.
Yeah, I have a couple because over the past 3 years, I've reviewed over 150 personal statements and study objectives. So mostly students do a lot of mistakes in the personal statement aspect because they don't quite understand that what we are saying. Adil has already told in detail that you're not copy pasting your CV. So don't say that I did internship in XYZ company for 6 months. You say that what you learned from it. Don't say I have excellent leadership skills. Provide an example of it. And please, please, please avoid cliched statements. Don't say I have always been passionate, since my childhood I wanted to be. No, not nobody knows from childhood, especially in Pakistan, with so much less exposure and no career counseling. No one knows from childhood what they want. There may be someone, but in general, we select universities because our brothers told us to, or sister told us, or my father wanted me to be an engineer, so that is why. Like, these are the reasons in Pakistan for the choice of study. So don't, like, do not make up a story. It's good to have a story, but do not forcefully make it up. It's okay if you don't have a sob story. It's okay, like, if you don't have to prove that I come from a very poor background and like I really need it. No, that's okay. If you're from a good family and you have been privileged with good quality education, mention that. Like, be true to yourself and do not ask for sample personal statements, because as the name indicates, personal statement is meant to come from your own. And if you read another personal statement, trust me, you will be unintentionally copying that same format, and that's not good. So please do not ask for personal statement. And I will also appeal to the Fulbrighters, like, do not share your personal statements, because you're not doing good to that person. And as for like your contribution coming back to Pakistan, again, don't be vague. Don't say like, I want to do so much, like I want to contribute to my country's progress because I have taken so much from it. No, be as much specific. Do you want to contribute in academia? Do you want to do a private job in government organization, in NGO? You want to start up your own business? You do want to do volunteer work? Like, be very specific in what you want to do and avoid those cliched statements. And again, definitely, you need to spend time on it. Ask yourself what you want. So do not write it in the last week, then you will not get it done. And you will end up writing all these statements copy pasted from Google. So please don't do that. Be as much specific as you can.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Rabia. Anybody else? Izzah or Zain?
Uh, Building off of what Rabia said, why cliches should be avoided. I know some of you might think, but we are actually very passionate about something. That's very good. It's just that when 10 million people are writing the same thing, it loses its impact. So if you are genuinely passionate, that's a great thing. It's just that put it in a way that shows it, rather than just, just talk saying that you're passionate about it, because 10 million people who are not passionate about it are doing the exact same thing. So you need to differentiate yourself by giving an example of how you're passionate. So they use a term called show not tell. So give an example, show how you're passionate, and not just say it. That's all I had to say.
Zain, do you want to add on this point?
Yeah, I agree with Izzah because that's what I did. And whenever I see essays, that's what I recommend, the topmost points, and think about what you have gone through life, think about your passions, and then try to link them up in an order, and that's how you come up with a story.
Uh, uh, After whatever excellent input from our panelists, I want to give in one point and move forward related to this, is that your two essays and the three letter of recommendations, all of them should make a coherent story rather than being independent of each other. For example, if I read your letter of recommendation, if I read your CV, if I read your personal statement and research objectives, that should be giving you different information pieces about the whole of your application. And it's not what the reviewer doesn't want to see is that, okay, I'm talking something in my personal statement, but something in my letter of recommendation is contradicting that, or something like that. So that is a very important aspect of your application which is needed to be considered. With that, we have talked about preparing early in the application process, and we will take the discussion forward with our next panelist Zain, who has utilized the Fulbright has different scholarship programs. One of that is the undergraduate Fulbright scholarship program, where you come to US for a limited amount of time and you spend some time in the US, and then Zain is going to talk about the undergraduate scholarship program, and because he's also received the Fulbright degree program, so we are also going to ask him that how that undergraduate experience helped him to uh, get the get into the Fulbright degree program. So over to Zain.
Thank you, Dr. Aamir. So the undergrad exchange program It's a program for undergraduate students who are in their second year or third year to apply exchange program. So what happens is that if you get selected, you get to go to the US and study there for a semester, and it's in your major, and it's basically the focus is unlike Fulbright. The focus is on the cultural aspect rather than the academics. So you take very limited number of credit hours in the college, but you focus more on uh, talking to people in your community, in your college about Pakistan and sharing your culture with them. So you have to organize cultural nights, you have to, give thoughts about Pakistan, and then you also have to attend their cultural events and, learn from them. So the purpose of the program, according to the USCFP, is to, allow to give students in Pakistan who are studying in undergraduate in Pakistani university a chance to broaden their horizon and get this exposure in the US, and then come back and tell their peers and people around them about the amazing experience that they have, and that could possibly help start new discussions around certain themes in the US. So for example, if you go to the US and just see how differently things are done there, how their society functions, maybe you get some new ideas to do some new things back in Pakistan. And when you come back to join this alumni network, and you get an opportunity to apply for small grants, alumni small grants they are called, and they're basically free money given to you by USCFP to implement social projects of their own in their community. And I know a lot of the alumni from the Ugrad program do take advantage of that. I applied for that twice, and I did two projects in Lahore. I was teaching children and students in high school and middle school coding and programming. So people and children who who go to government school, who don't really have access to good teachers, we would go there and teach them about programming and give them this exposure. So what I'm trying to say is that this is an opportunity to build your profile, because those experiences of going to the US, and being a leader and being an ambassador of Pakistan, and then coming back and doing those social projects, they really helped my Fulbright application when I, later applied for Fulbright. So those, it really, as Dr. Amir were asking me if it helps, it definitely helps if you take full advantage of the undergraduate exchange program. But the only downside that I would say with the UGRAD program is that it takes away a semester of your education in your field. So the universities that you go to for the UGRAD program, they're not the best universities. Like on Fulbright, people are placed in very good universities, but for UGRAD, the focus is on sending you to places where there's not a lot of diversity in terms of students there. So it's like mostly white people areas, and these universities are like state colleges, small state colleges, not very well known. The academics are could be probably poorer than what you get in Pakistan, and since you are limited by the number of credits that you can up study there, you really may feel that you are lagging behind in your studies, and then you would have to come back to Pakistan and catch up. So that's the only downside that I see of the UGRAD program. Otherwise, it's a really great experience. It's an amazing experience. They pay for everything. You don't have to worry about anything. You get to travel, see the US, and you also get to be like, if you're really not passionate in life or exciting in life, but when you go to the US, you see where how the world outside Pakistan exists. You get more ambitious in your plans, and maybe you'll one day also look forward to studying in the US and coming back here. And that's what happened with me, basically. Like I didn't really plan for going to Fulbright before, but after going on Ugrad, that's when I decided, okay, I need to prepare for Fulbright. And when I came back in my third year, I started planning for Fulbright right there and then. So if you have any questions, let me know in the chat. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Okay, Zain, can you talk briefly? I know that we are almost out of our time, but can you talk briefly about the application procedure of the UGRAD program?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that. So the application procedure for Ugrad is very similar to Fulbright. So it's also a plus point that it prepares you for the Fulbright application. So for Ugrad, you need a personal statement, which is kind of, similar story that you need to convey about your life and what you have been doing up to that point in terms of academics, in terms of uh, leadership in your community, in terms of volunteer work. And they're really looking for people not with high grades, but with people who have demonstrated excellence in some field, or people who could be future leaders of Pakistan, who demonstrate that potential in them. So you do need to have a certain GPA. If I remember correctly, like, they won't really accept you if you have a GPA of less than 3.3. You have to be 3.3, and if you're above 3.5, that's that increases your chances of applying. It's kind of unfair, but it's kind of their way of they get so many thousands of applications every year that's kind of the way that they filter through applications. So if you feel like you fit the criteria, then you should definitely apply. And the interview also happens in the same place where you will give the interview for Fulbright later on if you do apply. So it kind of prepares you for Fulbright. It's like a mock, interview process for Fulbright. And if you have gone through the Ugrad experience of the personal statements and the Fulbright and the interview experience, it becomes easier for the nerves when you go for the Fulbright interview as well too, because you enter basically the same room. Like, I had my interview in the same room for Ugrad and Fulbright, with a margin of 2 years. And it's sometimes it can also be some similar people on the panel as well too. So it's very helpful in that sense too.
Thanks a lot, Zain, for giving us that overview. And I think you should try to gain academic excellence. With that, because we are almost out of time, there are not many questions. We'll go through one by one and ask our panelists to reply to them. So the first question is from age limit. Anybody wants to jump to this question?
I haven't seen any age limit till now. Like, even in our cohort, there are people who have 10 years of professional experience and then they go for PhD. So if anybody have seen, then do mention, but I haven't seen any particular age limit.
I also think the same. So even if you're a senior professional, in old people like me also can apply. I'm quite oldest among the panelists. And so I mean, I have same to me. So I haven't seen any age limit. So apply. Okay. The next question is, I did BS microbiology in 2019. My question is from Sir Adil. What score is required for in GRE test for admission in microbiology department? And which university is best for microbiology? Adil.
Okay, Aamir, can I comment on Zain's experience before I
Sure.
answer the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Because I was on the U grade as well, so it's also good to have a fellow like that. So
Okay.
it's good to know. But the viewers might think, okay, why did they included the U grade in this discussion? And it's very important that you included it, because it's as Zain mentioned, it's kind of the same experience. Like the Fulbright and Ugrad application process is kind of the same. So one is that. The second is it's a good academic excellence. Once you are a winner, then they say, okay, hey, this guy already have this scholarships. He might have he is better than others. So that's the second. And the third thing, like when I went to the interview and And the first thing they ask me, like, hey, how was your experience in the US? So now you got a question there. And the second thing, they ask me, like, hey, will you be homesick? You will be doing all your work by your own, all the laundries, cooking. And I was like, hey, been there, done that. No issues. So it helps, you know. So yeah. So if there is any scholarships, like there is another one for only females, and the deadline is right now. Like I think a lot of girls will be working on it. So it's the midnight of 31st of January. There's also the semester exchange program. SOCI is another one. So yeah, also avail those opportunities. Now coming to the questions of microbiology, I think it's like US has like more than 4,700 universities, right? And all the people, what people do is like, okay, they only have heard about Harvard, Stanford, Yale, California Tech, all those things. So no, it's not like that. Come on, dude, like do some research. What universities you want to get in, and there is a lot. I cannot give you like, and it also depends on your area of interest. So your department could be in the top 10, but your university could be in the hundreds or 200. So, and the GRE score, it's I think if you have like somewhat around 300, that's more than enough. Work on your statement of purpose, then get some other experience. So, and yeah, with these pandemics and stuff, I think you have a good chance to get a scholarship from microbiology background.
Yes. Additionally to that, if you have, even if, I mean, I do not intend to motivate people to get a low GRE score, but by any way you tried your best, you got a low GRE score, just apply. I mean, that's the only golden principle you hear from any successful person, is never stop trying, apply. Second thing which I want to elaborate on Adil's point is that if you see a university which is like, okay, 100th in the ranking or 120th in the ranking, a very sad reality which we have to admit is that is going to be substantially better than any of the good universities which you will apply to in Pakistan. I mean, that is a sad reality, but because the regulatory bodies in the US, when they provide an accreditation to the university, they are so comprehensive that they are going to be an excellent resource for you to develop your career. So even if you're getting into some university which are lower side on the in the US ranking, then still go to them. So that with that we are going to move towards the next question. Assalamu alaikum, looking for PhD guidance. GRE is mandatory for PhD as well? Yes, no?
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. So simple answer is yes. If you want to apply for a PhD program through Fulbright, the GRE is a requirement for Fulbright scholarships. But if you want to apply to direct admission, then it depends on the university. And next week we are going to arrange a similar talk with one of my seniors related to direct versus Fulbright admissions. There you will get a more comprehensive discussion related to which one is better, whether direct admission is better, and if Fulbright is better. There are some universities, if you are applying directly, then it will depend directly on the university's preference. Some of the universities will tell you, okay, we need GRE, but others will say exempt it. Particularly, many universities in the COVID era have opted to exempt it. So this is very much varies from university to university. Okay. The next question is, GRE is subject specific or general?
So you have to give the general GRE with the application, but in some specific fields, they can ask you for a GRE subject.
Yeah, so exactly. So GRE general is a requirement for the Fulbright application, irrespective if the degree to which you are applying, if they have some degree specific requirements, then they will ask you to, okay, take those particular exams later, or you may not be required to take them at all. But yeah, okay. Then the next question, which is the cumulative GPA in post-graduation required to apply for GRE application. For GRE application, any eligibility criteria regarding this?
I think he meant like Fulbright application. For Fulbright application, it's preferred if you have more than 3. But again, we're not demotivating you. Just apply in any case. Like if you have low CGPA, then make sure your other aspects of the application are strong. Like that's what we recommend. Like if one aspect of the application is you think is weak, then make sure like the other aspects are strong enough to get yourself considered. But CGPA is not at all related to the GRE. GRE is a standardized test that has no relation to your CGPA or your degree at all.
Okay, right. So the next question is, which or to 4 universities should be selected for public health?
I don't think so. Anyone can answer that.
Yeah, so because I belong to public health, so let me answer that question generically for any field. Whenever you're choosing the list of universities in your application, what you can do is uh, uh, make a have to you need to adopt a standard approach. First of all, you should have 1 or 2 good universities, 1 or 2 average universities, and 1 or 2 like universities which we say that are not very much high in your ranking. So that will increase your chances. So that is a generic formula which will apply to all the fields, including public health. Okay. Okay.
I have a comment there.
Yeah.
I understand what Dr. Amir is saying, and I agree with it as well. But for Fulbright, the strategy I used was I submitted all the schools I really wanted to go to. Like they were all very ambitious because I thought Fulbright also filters it for you. So they won't accept every university that you recommend or you propose. So I was like, if someone has to filter it, let them be the ones instead of me. So that's one strategy if you want to apply. And they did filter it a little bit. So I wasn't too sad about it.
Yeah, I think perhaps all of us ended up doing that. So, as a thanks for correcting us. So, what is this trying to say that you try to aim for good universities, and Fulbright is going to add average universities to your list of the university. Anybody else wants to add to this particular point?
Yeah, if you have like your GRE scores with you, then that can be a good indicator for university selection. If you know after you, like for me, I got 309, so definitely I could not have Harvard or Yale or like universities like that on my application. Like that totally makes sense. So if you have your profile with you, then the university selection becomes easier. Like just filter it on the basis of CGPA requirement and GRE score.
Additionally, one mistake which some of us did and I did was that I added one of the university and I did not look into the eligibility criteria or the minimum required criteria, as a result of which I had to that university ended up dropping up from my list because that particular program for which I mentioned in the list required me to take a course in calculus which I was not having in my on my transcript. So make sure that before you put any university, you read the requirements of that particular university, of that particular program in detail. So that is the mistake which I did, and I'm communicating that you should not do it. Okay, moving forward. Okay, this is a good session. Thanks a lot. Words limit for both essays.
750 words.
Okay, for
And
both
make
of them.
sure you make the best of it. Like don't stop at 600 or 650. Make sure you reach the maximum.
Okay. Okay, what about GRE exam procedure?
I'm not sure if the question is about how to register for GRE. If that's the question, the website is ETS. You can go to the website and register yourself for the dates you want to register for. I believe you can also register by calling and going to one of those prometric centers, I think they're called. I haven't done that process myself, but I think that is an option too, to physically go and register for a specific date.
Right. Okay, the next question is a very important question to decide on whether you want to go for the GRE versus the direct admission, and this is something which we'll be talking about in detail in our next week's session. But the question is, thank you all, this session is really helpful. May I know the terms and conditions related to bond with the government of Pakistan? Okay, who wants to take this one?
I can talk about in terms of PhD because if you're a PhD, then you have to sign a bond with HEC as well as USFP. So master's students have privilege in that sense. Like they don't sign a bond with HEC, and HEC bond process is hectic. But don't worry about that at this stage. Everyone gets through with it. But yeah, the terms and conditions on the bond are that the amount of years that you spend in US, you'll have to spend the same back in Pakistan serving. Now there can be some way arounds, but I don't have much detail on that, so I'll just go with the terms and conditions written on the bond. And in case of PhD, like with HEC bond, you sign a bond worth 18 million rupees. Like you have to show some non-movable assets, like just in case if you don't come back, then they will have access to that property of yours. Like it's just a means of insurance, like to make sure that you come back to Pakistan. So that is why I started saying it from the first sentence. Like if you want to settle in US, then maybe Fulbright is not the best option for you. So make sure you explore your options depending on what your objective is.
Anybody else wants to comment on this specific point?
Yeah, there was one point, and there's another restriction, that is the visa restriction. That's we're getting J1 visa. So if you get a J1 visa, so you cannot get another J1 visa in 2 years. You can get an F1, but you cannot get a J1 or some other immigrants visa. So that's a visa requirement for 2 years.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Adil. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Okay. So that's something, again, related to the point that when you're applying, the bigger picture, you have to be clear about the bigger picture. What are your long-term plans, whether you want to stay in the US or you want to come back? Coming back for the PhD is that you have a bond of 5 years, which the HEC process is quite cumbersome, but I will not worry about that at this stage, because everybody, though it's not easy, but everybody gets through that. The main thing which you want to decide is whether you want to stay in the US or you want to come back, and you have to plan accordingly. Additionally, the bond for the master students is 2 years, so which I think as compared to the PhD is, even if you want to settle in the US, one option is that, okay, you complete your master, you come to Pakistan, you gain some experience because you still will be young, and you apply for a PhD through direct experience. So that is one route which you can also use. Having said that, we are going to move towards the next question. Adil, you were saying something related to this?
Okay, Aamir, yeah. So there's one thing, a lot of people who apply for the masters, they might think that, okay, if I get a master's degree from the US in Fulbright, I cannot apply for the PhD. So that's an opportunity lost. But that's not. For the PhD, you cannot get a Fulbright again. Like once you get a Fulbright, that's it. You cannot get again for the Fulbright for the PhD. But you can apply directly for a PhD program, and then you will get an F1 visa, which is different than the one you have, and you won't follow that 2 years restriction. So don't worry about it. So you can go into the PhD after your master's.
Okay, so the next question is that, sir, it's for all the fields or specific fields? I think this point was touched, but can somebody quickly talk about it?
Oh, the Fulbright Scholarship. Yeah, there are some specific fields related to practicing medicine that are excluded, but other than that, almost all fields are covered.
So pretty much, yeah.
Specific focus areas. So it's better to see that. Like every year in call of applications, they will have some specific focus areas. So it's better, like it would be, you'll have greater chance of selection if you fall in that area, but that should not stop you from applying.
Right. So apart from clinical medicine, like hardcore, where you see the patients and you treat the patients, because US has a different procedure of getting licensed in the US. Apart from that, we have people in literature, we have people in archaeology, we have people in almost any field you can think of. So you just apply.
Yeah, one thing more. Like if you have done your MBBS or MD, you can still apply for other fields like epidemiology or public health, like Aamir. So
yeah, I'm actually a medical doctor, and I've done a master already in epidemiology and biostatistics, and I end up applying for healthcare analytics and information technology. So if you're a doctor, you can apply for a number of. If you're a medical doctor, and there are not many non-clinical fields where you can apply. Okay, so going towards For microbiology, is it general or subject specific? Again, I think this question is answered.
Yeah, it's general. So
General, yeah. Okay. So there are a few more questions. We are almost, and we are going to end it in a few minutes. A really helpful session to understand the basics. Thank you very much, everyone in the panel.
Thank
I
you
did
for
master.
listening right now.
Yeah, thanks a lot for remaining with us. So I did master with research area of solar energy. Is there any issue to change the research area for my PhD? And please elaborate research proposal. Just a few points. Related to research proposal, in my YouTube channel, I'm running a complete series on how to write a research proposal, because that's a very that is something which we cannot talk about very quickly. I'll refer to the panelists for changing on the subject of changing the research area. Who wants
Yeah,
to?
you can definitely change research areas, because we have seen so many applicants that have a change in research area. But again, the point is that how you justify it. Like in your personal statement and your study objective, there should be a proper justification, because if you're changing your study area, there should be a turning point, like why you decided to change your study area. So just make sure like you clarify that, like you put across that very clearly, and you justify your change of study research area. Otherwise, it's not a problem. Like your chances will not be reduced if your bachelor's was in something else and you want to do masters in, or you did a master's in specific field and your PhD is different. No, it's all about how you convey and how you justify your choice.
Right. So, anybody else wants to say something on this point before I can move towards the conclusion of the session? Okay. So, I think we have lost Izzah, but I will want to have some final one-liners from each of our panelists. So, first of all, Adil, what you will finally say before we conclude our session?
I would say, there's especially the masters. It's like 100 scholarships. Please apply. And some people have misconceptions that only the people from LUMS, NUST, or IBA would make into uh, the scholarships. I have all my education from University of Peshawar, so I'm here. So please apply. And that's it.
Okay. Zain, want to say something?
Yeah, I would say, be very clear on what you want. If you want to come back to Pakistan, definitely apply for Fulbright. And if you want have plans of staying out in the US, then you should look for other opportunities.
Okay. Thank you. Zain, Rabia, want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say something that I always say, that be honest, be true about yourself. Do not try to cook up stories in your personal statement just because you think like a good story will increase your chances. No, because they will see your whole profile. And at the end, they will see you in person. So even if you do cook up a story, they will know what's the truth and what not. So make sure like you're honest and true to yourself. Like do not lie. Do not, if you do not have any volunteer experience, do not make up from nothing. So just be honest in your application, just be true to yourself, because when you go for interview, the person that you put in the application should exactly match with the person that they see physically present there. So that's very important.
Okay, so with this, we are going to conclude our session. And the one takeaway from this specific session is that no matter what your background is, what your educational background is, no matter what your field is, and I will perhaps we didn't talk a lot about this particular point, but no matter if you are, it's not for that. Okay, the top students are going to get it. It's a scholarship where your application is assessed holistically. So apply. That's the one. Uh, Take home message. And if you we hope that everybody gets selected, but uh, when you take your GRE, it's valid for 5 years, so keep on applying. That's the second message which I want to take. I would like to thank all of my panelists, Adil, Zain, Rabia, and Izzah. Izzah just perhaps lost her connection. It's not very easy to take out time during your busy study schedules, so I'm extremely thankful to our esteemed panelists. And with that, we are going to end this live stream. And I'm also thankful to all of you who have been with us through this live stream. Please share this video with others so that maximum number of people can benefit from it. Take care for the time being. Bye and Allah Hafiz.